let's talk about how I replaced my anxious attachment that was causing the majority of my catastrophic love life with a very happy relationship for the last 4 years and getting married in 5 weeks. So in my last video, I shared how I finally overcame anxiety after 27 years of struggle. So if you want a little bit of a background story and how that happened, go back and watch that video. And one of the things that I shared in that video was that the first thing that I focused when I started that work, my first session regarding anxiety, was actually focused on anxious attachment, meaning I was just feeling very insecure in relationships. I had trouble finding a happy, committed relationship. I was attracted to people who were very emotionally unavailable and who were just even amplifying those feelings of insecurity, which would make me overthink every move, which would make me really afraid that they're going to abandon me. So I would try to reject them first, or I would try to rehearse breakups in my head. I would try to sometimes create issues so I could end the relationship and so on. All in all, not good. Not a situation that you want to be in, right? So that's what I wanted to explore. And what it came back to in my first transformational hypnotherapy session, what the root cause of that anxious attachment for me personally was a little bit unusual, because anxious attachment is usually formed in the first 18 months of people's life. So I didn't go that much back. I didn't go to that super early life. I went back to being 3 or 4 years old, and basically it was very connected to me feeling like I'm not a good person. It was very connected to a feeling of shame because of something that I did when I was a little kid, and not because of what I did, but because of how I was treated because of it. In my mind at that point, I saw my parents' reaction as a sign that I'm not a good person and that there's something deeply wrong with me. Was their intention to convey that to me or not? That's not really important. I don't think it was, but that's how I perceived it in the moment. And I think that's super important to understand about this work. I think this is something that a lot of people have trouble understanding, because they're like, oh, well, my parents were good parents, or they did the best that they could. And I understand that. And yeah, that can be true. But even if your parents are good people, if they were trying, if they were doing their best, the main part of how anxiety gets created is your perception, your interpretation of what is happening, what is being said, what is being conveyed. And often you're not taking literal words in as your beliefs. It's not that someone tells you, although that's possible and that certainly amplifies things. It is possible that someone tells you you are a bad person, but they don't have to tell you that. Just by their reaction, by their disappointment, anger, other words that they say, you as the 3-year-old, 4-year-old version of you can interpret their actions, their behavior, their demeanor, their words as you getting that message that you are a bad person, or that you're not lovable, that you're not good enough, that there's something wrong with you. Those are usually kind of the core beliefs that are behind anxiety. In my experience with now hundreds of clients and hundreds of sessions that I led, it usually goes back to those kinds of beliefs. And I think that's something really important to understand, because if you have kids, or if you have kids in your family, if you ever been around little kids that are 2, 3, 4 years old, then you see firsthand how they're thinking, how they're processing things, and that mind and child experience is very limited. They have very small amount of knowledge about the world, about relationships, about what's going on around them. So they have a very limited ability to interpret what's going on. It's a very black and white way of thinking, and intense emotional reactions in their parents usually in children create a very catastrophic way of thinking, especially if they are more often or more frequent, because children depend so much on the validation and the approval and the acceptance of their parents. As children, we know that our primary task is to get validation and approval from our parents, because that's what gives us survival. We get our food, we get our shelter, we get taken care of, we get our emotional needs met through cultivating that good relationship with our parents. So when something breaks that, when we feel like that's jeopardized, it goes directly to the fears of survival. It makes us feel like we literally might die. And that's why this panicky, catastrophic way of thinking and interpreting often comes into place. And sometimes, of course, when we have heavily abusive parents and extreme environments, extreme stressful environments, that is justified, but often it's more a product of our child's mind and a child's way of perception and interpretation. Not that it was okay what our parents did, or that it was right, or that they couldn't do better. That's absolutely also true, and that's something that needs to be acknowledged and validated in a session. And that is very, very healing as well. But the interpretation, the message, the perception that became the belief that's driving all this anxiety today wasn't completely accurate either. So when we understand that, when we see that in the session, as I did for myself as well in that session, I was able to let go of that belief and replace it with something that was serving me better by listening to a daily recording that I also mentioned in my last video. That is super, super important. The daily recording that's personalized to me, to what I wanted to achieve, to have a happy relationship, to feel calm, to feel grounded. All of those things I listened to daily, and then they became my new nature. It became a natural consequence of listening to that recording that I started to feel and think that way. And in my next dating experience, just a couple of months later, I just felt completely different, and actually couldn't figure out why I was feeling so different, because I was just telling everyone that I'm feeling so calm and that I'm enjoying my emotions so much, and that I don't know what's happening, because this is different, this is different. This is what I was repeating to everyone. Basically, I totally forgot that I did this session a couple of months before. So one night I literally woke up in the middle of the night, 4:30 a.m., and I just like opened my eyes out of deep sleep, and I was like, oh my God, like the session worked. That was the moment when I realized that the session actually worked, and that the way I'm feeling so different in this dating experience now is the consequence of the session and the recording that I had. And that was a very beautiful and magical moment for me, and it was the ultimate proof that this work works, right? And that something that I thought before that moment, before that session, I started to think that the only way to fix this is by basically reliving my life. Because everything that I was doing before that, before the hypnosis, it felt like pretending. I knew what the issue was. I knew that I was supposed to connect to my inner child. I knew I was supposed to give myself that love that my parents weren't giving to me, but I didn't know how to do it, or when I was doing it, it just didn't have that effect. I still felt empty inside. I still felt that kind of like hole inside. I still felt that pain inside, and I didn't know how to change that. I didn't know if like the next 10 years of doing this will actually do something, but because I wasn't seeing any shifts, although I was doing all of those things. When I started hypnosis, when I did that just for a few weeks, I started to see that inner shift. I started to feel differently inside. I started to feel that that void is getting filled, and that I have that sense of inner confidence and inner peace. Basically, it went from like feeling like a hole to feeling like something in me is fulfilled. It sounds a little bit weird, but if you went through that, then I think you'll be able to relate and you'll be able to know how that feels. That was a very hopeful moment for me. It was a big moment because I realized, okay, there is a way to fix that. I don't have to go and relive my childhood again. I don't have to live with this hole until the end of my life. I don't have to do this for the next 20 years and hope that it's going to change something. It's already changing. And if I continue to do this, I could make big shifts, big inner and external shifts that normally I wouldn't know how to do, because they are connected to those early years, the amount of attunement that you get in those early years. One of my clients that I work with said for her session, which was absolutely amazing, was that in the session she was able to experience exactly how the anxious attachment was formed within her. I think that's so super powerful, especially because she's training to be a psychotherapist. She did 5 years of therapy herself with a very skilled therapist. So a lot of sessions under her belt, a lot of inner work under her belt, a lot of knowledge. And what was different with the hypno session, what she shared with me, was that she was able to actually experience how that attachment got created, instead of just thinking about it intellectually or understanding generally what that is, without having that inner experience. And when she had that inner experience, then she was able to shift that, to reframe that, to release that, and start replacing it with something that actually serves her, with starting to replace it with feeling calm and safe and grounded in relationships, feeling lovable and like she is enough, because she absolutely is. Incredible power of this work, that you don't just think about it, you don't just talk about it, you don't analyze it, you don't think that you know what you're talking about. You experience what happened, but you also experience it in a little bit of a detached way. So it's not as painful as it was the first time it was happening. There's a little bit of detachment in it, so you can fully process that emotion, so you can fully feel that emotion, let it through your body and release it. So you have both an emotional experience, you have a logical experience, because you connect those dots and you understand where that's coming from logically. And you also have a more intuitive, higher experience, where you have that higher knowledge of what happened and a higher understanding that allows you to release that situation and to move on to a better life, to a life that is serving you more. So overcoming of that anxious attachment unlocked a new level of dating for me, and the interactions, the relationships I had from that moment were a lot more mature. I was able to select more easily what isn't for me, what is for me. And when I did get into relationships, I would just feel a lot more calmer, grounded. The relationships felt more mature. And then with time, I also met my fiance 4 years ago. It's a next level of relationship where you just feel grounded, you feel safe, you feel calm, you feel the love growing daily. Instead of getting bored after 6 months, things get only better and better as time goes on. The main shift for me is that now a long-term relationship is something that excites me, that I'm looking forward to, that feels amazing, whereas before long-term relationship would be something that would make me feel scared or like some kind of imprisonment. So that shift is a huge thing that allowed me to actually find someone who can give me that long-term relationship that I was craving for, that long-term partnership, and that allowed for me to be in a relationship that gets better as it moves on. We get more connected, we get more intimate, we know each other more, and we are building something together. So this is the story of how I was able to overcome my anxious attachment for good and have my happy ending in a form of soon-to-be wedding that I'm super looking forward to. And I hope this was inspiring to you. I hope you learned something, and I hope this resonated with some of your experience. So let me know in the comments what that was. Let me know any questions, either here or, as I always say, DM me on Instagram. And if you want to try this process for yourself that helped me release my anxious attachment, you can do it for free in my anxiety-free school, or you can book a discovery call with me. All of the links will be in the description. Let me know also in the comments what else you would like to see from me, what next topic. Maybe I would love to hear that too, and do a video on what you are interested in. And I will see you soon. Thank you for watching.